All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really going deep into the world of artist, Bob Camblin. And, you've given us a lot to work with here. We have some of his quotes, some biographical information. We have his exhibition history and analysis of some of his pieces. And so our mission, as always, is to kind of distill the essence of this artist for you.
Yeah. You've given us a lot of little pieces of a very, very fascinating mosaic to work with. And Bob Camblin kind of emerges as this very talented and somewhat iconoclastic artist. I mean, he's very much in demand by collectors, but his work seems vast and elusive. So we're going to be exploring some of the threads that connect this artistic journey together.
Yeah, enigmatic is a good word for him. He's an artist whose work is very, very much sought after, and when it appears, it often, it commands high prices and a lot of attention, and there is a certain scarcity to it that kind of adds to the mystique of the man. So to set the stage, Camblin's journey begins in Oklahoma, and he hones his craft at the Kansas City Art Institute. And then he gets a Fulbright scholarship to go to Italy, which becomes a really pivotal experience, as you might imagine. He also spends a good part of his career teaching at some very prestigious institutions.
Yeah, that academic grounding, I think, really does inform his later artistic explorations. His time shaping young artists at places like Ringling School of Art and Rice University.
Yeah.
That speaks to this desire to really share his knowledge and to influence the next generation. But it's really that radical shift he makes in 1976.
Yeah, 1976. So he essentially steps away from this established academic path and chooses this nomadic life, funding his art and his travel through art sales and commissions in places like Italy, France, Ireland, Mexico, and the South Pacific. So we really get this picture of an artist who is deeply committed to his vision and unburdened by traditional expectations.
Yeah, and that's what really comes out. Uh, when you look at that choice, it speaks volumes about just how dedicated he was to his artistic vision, to willingly just detach himself from, conventional structures of the art world and chart his own course across continents. Demonstrates, I think, a very, very strong internal compass. I mean, that immersion in different cultures no doubt had a profound impact on his way of seeing the world and the way that he made art.
Now, for this deep dive, we're really focusing on a specific collection of Camblin's work. These are drawings and private reflections from the years 1950 to 1974. These were not originally intended for public view, which gives them this kind of immediacy and a direct connection to his unfiltered thoughts. We're really getting a window into the formation of his artistic process.
Exactly. And that window uh, allows us to see kind of the development of his artistic philosophy. This predates his more popular, what's called his Musha Volantes period, and his extensive travel. So this is really a glimpse into the bedrock, if you will, of some of the ideas that fueled his more public explorations.
Okay, let's start with Camblin's musings on time and permanence. He wrote, "Fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years perhaps," and we get this hint of irony there, but also a deep sense of how things are so fleeting. In another piece called Salt Air Summer 1967, he contrasts these three cottonwood trees that are now gone with the fading memory of music. He says, everybody seemed to get older right then. So what do you see in these reflections on time?
Well, there's a really profound awareness of impermanence there. That juxtaposition of the solidity of cottonwood trees, right, and then their absence and the ephemeral nature of music and memory really drives home that point. He's very focused on this idea of transience and how time shapes our perception. I think also that the addendum, or another 10 years perhaps, kind of injects some dose of reality there. It's a reminder that things that we think will last forever don't necessarily. So I think that one of the takeaways we can have from this is that Camblin was very much interested in the transient nature of life and existence.
There's this great quote that really gets to this idea of the pursuit of understanding. He says, "Look into the atom, you get what you need. Look into magic, and you get what you need. Philosophy and art are in both." It's like he's blurring these lines between science and magic, philosophy and art.
Exactly. It's this deliberate, I think, blurring of those lines that's really important here. He's suggesting that they all kind of offer a valid path to understanding the universe and our place in it. So rather than choosing one over the other, he's presenting these as interconnected ways of exploring the truth.
And this kind of leads into his next thought, which is where he talks about sticking with common sense and finding this perfectly average view. And he talks about appreciating both science and magic and anticipating a very intensely bright gray where the two might meet. It's a very distinctive outlook, isn't it?
It is. It really speaks to this desire for balance and integration.
Hmm.
He's not choosing sides. He's not on the side of science or the side of magic, but he's actively looking for that space where they can coexist and inform his understanding of the world. So this bright gray he talks about, it's almost it's this neutral territory where this perceived conflict between the rational and the mystical can actually kind of dissolve.
He touches on intuition as well with this quote where he talks about the sixth sense being, without a doubt, senza dubbio. He puts it in Italian. So there's this idea of conviction as playing a part in how we perceive things.
Yeah, it's this conviction, this inner knowing that I think is really crucial to his artistic process as well.
Hmm.
Suggests this deep trust in his own perceptions and insights. And it really lines perfectly with the often intuitive nature we associate with making art. It's like some truth can only be felt and known on a level that's beyond just pure logic and reason.
Okay. And here's another one where he kind of hints at this inner conflict. He says, bright day and I soar, how cruel that my soul is attached to this earth and yet. So it speaks to this tension between maybe his artistic aspirations, this yearning to transcend everyday life, and yet being very grounded in the physical world.
That's right. And I think that's very relatable to many people and certainly to many artists. It's that yearning to reach beyond the mundane, the material, and yet you're still tethered to it, in some ways. And so I think it really represents for an artist, this struggle to balance the ideals of creation with the practicalities of everyday existence. Honesty with oneself is really paramount in this quote from 1974 where he says, "I cannot tell a lie to myself for very long. Find something in nature that completes you and then surrender." So there's a real strong emphasis on truth within, and then there's this kind of spiritual connection to the natural world. Yeah, the first part really speaks to the core of authenticity in his life and in his art. He's basically stating that self-awareness is vital and truthfulness is paramount. And then the second part, that call to find completion in nature and to surrender, suggests this immense respect for nature, not only as a source of inspiration, but also a path to self-understanding.
His thoughts on process and belief are also interesting. He wrote, "The light is all you need. The end is to evolve by doing the best you can. The means is to amplify what you're doing and believe." So there's this sense of action combined with conviction. What do you think he means by the light?
Well, the light could have a number of interpretations. It could be just inspiration in general, that spark of an idea. It could be clarity of vision. It could be just potential within yourself. But I think the core message here is that growth happens through dedicated effort by doing the best you can and having a real belief in that work and that effort. So it's both the doing and the faith that really is what makes it work.
This next one is a bit layered, almost fragmented. He says, "In the balance, patience and yet, freedom again and yet. In silence, the reality can be maintained. In the reality, the pain that I move away from. True love moves to indifference to protect itself." There's a lot to unpack there about balance, freedom, silence, love, even pain.
Yeah, there is. And I think what's interesting here is the repetition of "and yet." It suggests this kind of ongoing internal dialogue, this tension between
Right.
these forces. So he doesn't present any of this as absolutes, but as things that are in tension with each other. And then this idea that in silence the reality can be maintained is interesting because it suggests that the noise of the world can distract us from a deeper truth, and silence is where that reality can actually emerge. And then his thought on true love and how it moves toward indifference to protect itself is interesting. I mean, it's a somewhat cynical take on relationships. I think we see a glimpse of vulnerability here.
He talks about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary when he writes, "Sublime in the ridiculous, look for the forgotten, but become what you are less only is." And this connects to his idea of the purpose of art and how it evolved from art for art's sake to something more vital and personal. He says, "Art for life's sake, or art for my sake, or art for survival's sake."
Right. There's a real shift from a detached idea of art to something that's much more personal. Finding that sublime in the ridiculous suggests that you have to engage with the world around you to see things with new eyes. So the shift from the kind of, I guess, the more highfalutin notion of art for art's sake to these more existential reasons for making art reflects his engagement with art, not only as a craft, but as something very vital to his existence and perhaps even to the human experience.
There's this definite call for unconventional thinking in this quote where he says, "Step off the train of thought to find the power that is no power. to do the work that is not work, to laugh the true laugh, bending is not bowing. So it's all about breaking free from these linear, traditional approaches.
Yeah, and I think when he talks about the power that is no power and the work that is not work, he's really, he's really pointing towards a more lateral, a more intuitive kind of influence. It's not about forcefulness, but it arises organically from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And so the work that is not work could be just a more effortless, a more playful approach to things.
Yeah.
But that last line there, the distinction between bending and bowing, speaks to maintaining your integrity even under, external pressures.
This next one really gets at the duality of things and the pursuit of a still mind. He says, balancing and being for and against, we missed the clouds and for a moment regretted it. Then as lightning, the mind ripped out in flashes of variations to reach the still pond. What a visual there, that still pond after the lightning.
Yeah, that's a great image, isn't it? I think it captures the dynamic nature of human thought, that balancing and being for and against. We have these thoughts that we're constantly kind of grappling with, and those mist clouds, I think, represent something that was overlooked in all that activity in the mind. And then, we have this lightning flash, where all of a sudden the mind explodes with ideas, and it's chaotic. And then there's this still pond, and I think that really signifies a state of mental clarity and a state of focus, and that inner peace that can be achieved after you kind of work through all that noise and all those thoughts.
He has these sort of contradictory directives. When you think, don't act. When you act, don't think. So it's about really focusing your intention, being fully present in the moment.
Right. And I think this is a pretty common idea in, in meditation and mindfulness, to just be completely in the moment. So, thinking about what you're doing or thinking about the future or what you're going to do, you have to kind of pick one or the other, or else both of those efforts will suffer.
There's this brief anecdote here that says, we talked of changing the world. He listened, then took 21 cents from his coin purse to pay for his coffee and left. It's like this grounding moment, He's talking about these lofty ideas, and then he's brought back to reality.
Yeah, it's a funny little anecdote. It's a reminder, I think, to focus on the moment, and even while you're talking about these big ideas, you still have to attend to these more immediate needs.
And he was so good at these very vivid sensory descriptions. For example, the cosmos waves as me with tree leaves, sun-heated air moves across the electrons of my skin. Sunlight reflects those greens. First white, then yellow-green, and in deep shadows blue.
Yeah, it really shows his attention to detail and his ability to connect to those those sensations and the experience. The way he describes light interacting with the leaves is just really, really great. And so for his artistic process, I think it really points to his grounding in sensory experience. This was not just a guy who sat around and thought things up. He really, really engaged with the world through his senses.
This next one is called On the Tower, and it's the white mountains, the cold wind, the lightning, and then it says, we leave before the show is over. So it's like he's capturing these intense moments, and then he just moves on.
Right. That abrupt ending there really suggests, I think, a real focus on the ephemeral nature of experience. It's almost like a metaphor for life itself, where we have these moments of clarity and beauty, and even sometimes things that upset us, but ultimately they all they're fleeting. They come and go, and that leaving suggests this kind of detachment.
That theme of the grounding nature of the natural world comes through loud and clear in this little statement. The rain-soaked willows brought me to my senses. It's such an evocative image.
Yeah, and nature really does serve as this anchor for clarity and perspective throughout all of his writing and in his art.
Yeah.
That being brought back down to earth by something as simple as some rain-soaked willows really suggests this return to awareness and a stripping away of all those distractions. So I think that appreciation for nature's restorative power is a real theme for him.
Even the smallest presence has a profound effect on him. He says, he walked by so slow that my writing slowed, my heart and also the wind. Wow.
Yeah, it really highlights just how connected things are. And those subtle moments can have this profound influence on our state of mind, and even on how we perceive the natural world around us. It's that slowness, I think, that really draws attention. It disrupts the normal kind of rhythm of things, and it forces you to be in the moment.
This next one kind of hints at this joy that can't even be described. He says, "There is one joy that exceeds all other, and that's all I'll say, leaving it up to us."
And that's, I think, the power of it. By not defining it, he lets each of us experience our own understanding of what that means.
Mhm.
So it's personal and it's also universal, at the same time.
This next one is, it's about this kind of shared experience of something just beyond the physical reality. He says, "Not a leaf moves, and yet we all feel the cool breeze." So it's this awareness of something we can't quite put our fingers on.
Yeah, it speaks to that shared sensitivity that we
Right.
all have. It's like there's some uh, change in the environment or even emotional, undercurrent that we can all kind of pick up on without even knowing how.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it speaks to that interconnectedness between people and their world.
The pragmatic side of him comes out in this quote: "Much better than arguing is to look at my watercolor palette," so creative expression, "as a much more productive outlet than conflict."
Absolutely, and I think that that's something that a lot of artists and creative people can relate to. I mean, creation can be a really powerful and positive way to channel frustration.
Here's one that really gets at the nature of perception itself. He says, "White is light, black is absence of light, but people are seen." So he's maybe questioning those simplistic definitions when it comes to human perception.
Absolutely. He's saying, look, human perception is a lot more complex than just, the presence or absence of something like light. People are seen, so they're understood in ways that are much more nuanced and complicated than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's asking us to go beyond the superficial definitions and really consider just how we see each other in a much richer way.
This is such a great one. He's engaging with nature, and he says, "Well, that's enough about me, Mother Nature. Let's talk about you. What did you think of my last picture?"
Yeah, this one really reveals his unique relationship with the natural world. He's engaging with it almost as a fellow creative or even like an art critic, asking for its feedback.
He has this list: "5 thoughts crashed at South Bellaried in Mandel," and then he just lists a bunch of random things, and it's
Yeah,
like this stream of thought coming out. Do you see this reflected in his artwork at all?
yeah. It's it's a very, I think, relatable experience. Our minds tend to jump around in this way, making these weird connections. And his finished pieces might not always seem that way, but I think this kind of thinking, no doubt informed his creative process and led to unexpected combinations and juxtapositions.
He gives these little bits of almost humorous advice about, how to end arguments. Like, how do you end an argument with a pessimist? How do you end an argument with an optimist?
Yeah.
And they're funny, but also insightful in terms of how he understood people.
Yeah. They're really great little observations on personality types and the dynamics of disagreement. It shows an understanding of different perspectives. And yeah, it's funny. I mean, sometimes the best way to end an argument is just to acknowledge those inherent differences and then walk away.
He has this really great question about relativity, and he says, "As people move away from us, do they diminish in our eyes, or mind, or relativity?" It's such a good question. I mean, how does distance affect, how we think about people?
Yeah, it's a profound question. And I think, it gets at the nature of perception and how it's not only about physical distance, but it's also about the passage of time and memory and our own kind of, internal frameworks that we have. It's not only about, how far away somebody is, but all those other things factor in.
He writes about this kind of paradox of conflict. He says, "My attempts to stop arguing created an argument." It's so, so true. I mean, we've all been there, right?
I think, yeah, that's a pretty relatable experience. It's, the unintended consequences of, trying to resolve a conflict.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the complexities of relationships, doesn't it?
This is a good one. "If you argue or if you agree, you may learn, but you do not communicate." So it's about how, truly communicating goes beyond just agreeing or disagreeing.
Yeah. I think he's saying that true communication is more than, just exchanging opinions or even finding common ground. It's this deeper level of empathy and connection. So, arguing might teach you something, about a different viewpoints, and agreeing might foster this kind of connection. But neither necessarily equals, this true communication, where you're really getting into the other person's worldview, and how they see things.
This next one, it's very brief. There's the sense of faith even in the face of not knowing. He writes, open gate, broken fence, a ways in all directions, wishing to see all around all at once, quarry unknown, persistent. So it's like he's searching, but he doesn't even know what he's searching for.
Yeah, there's this real sense of belief and perseverance, even when the goal is undefined. That image of the open gate and the broken fence suggests a journey. In spite of the potential obstacles. So yeah, there's this yearning for a greater understanding, but a recognition, I think, that the path is uncertain.
He draws this distinction between revolution and evolution. He says revolution leads to changes. Evolution is change. The first will be man's misunderstanding. The second is understanding the balance will be found in our minds, individually now, perhaps collectively later. So he seems to favor the evolutionary approach.
Right. And I think that preference for evolution really points to, this internal process of transformation rather than these external shifts. So revolution often comes from a lack of understanding and can lead to change that's maybe not deeply integrated. Evolution, on the other hand, is more organic, and it comes from a place of understanding. So, yeah, it's a belief in growth and comprehension as the basis for lasting change.
This is a simple one, but it's profound. He says, you never miss the water until the wells run dry. It's about appreciating what you have right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's an old proverb, and it's true, that we often don't realize what we have until it's gone.
There's this haiku-like observation about nature. 6 starlings sitting among broken branches. Look, no buds are growing. It's stark, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it so interesting. It's the birds symbolize resilience, I think, but the fact that they're sitting on broken branches where nothing is growing uh, suggests this, loss or even barrenness.
This one's interesting because there's this shift in perspective. He says, every day the clouds circle our tower as if we, again, were the intruders. So he's talking about this changing sense of belonging in the natural world.
Yeah, it makes you think about how our sense of belonging is not, static. Doesn't just stay the same, but it can change over time.
Hmm.
He's much more aware of nature's rhythms and the vast history of the landscape that he's in.
Yeah.
And I think that can make human presence feel more temporary, and even out of place.
There's a really simple observation in the Brian sketchbook. It's just Brian's fish, stuck, tides out, not much time. And it feels like it's a metaphor for all of us sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that feeling of being trapped, by circumstances, and the awareness of our own, mortality.
This is, he's a whimsical guy sometimes. He says, it wouldn't be too bad to come back as a fly if you knew your body would shine in the sun that way. I mean, it's such a great image.
Yeah, and it shows a real appreciation for beauty in the unexpected. A fly. I mean, most people don't think of flies as beautiful creatures,
Yeah.
but the way the light plays off their wings, it can be quite beautiful.
He says darning needles sew shimmer-lined tapestries of blue, green, and white bands. So he's finding artistry in nature.
Yeah, this is a great example of that kind of elevating something that's ordinary to the level of art.
Right.
Darning needles, tapestries. He's seeing that artistry in the way they move and fly around.
Yeah. This next one, it's about sensory experience, but it's also, there's this hint of danger. He says, bleached, textured and white, to taste and sight. Pray ever avoid the lamp fate. I wonder what he means by the lamp fate.
Yeah, it's a stark kind of image. It makes you think of vulnerability and even mortality. And pray ever avoid the lamp fate probably is referring to the moth's attraction, to light, even if it kills it.
This one gets at the very essence of art. He says, Canvas rectangle, summer light, calligraphy, mystic and complete. And it's like breaking it down to its most basic elements, you know.
It's going back to that, to that core of what makes a work of art. He's focusing on those basic elements, the canvas, the light, the marks that are made on it, and asking, is that all it takes to make
Yeah.
something that's truly, truly profound and mysterious?
This next one is it's a bit disjointed. He says, "Eater of Christian's Chimera Byzantium warm, cold children's chair."
Yeah, it's a very surreal kind of image, and it's almost like one of those early daddiest collages.
Mm-hmm.
There's no obvious connection here, so it really makes you think about, what it could mean, or maybe even to just to appreciate how strange it is that it doesn't make any
He
sense.
talks about San Gimignano, calamari to oblivion, strange ways of magic. And I don't know, that calamari to oblivion just makes me think of him eating a lot of calamari in San Gimignano.
Yeah, well, San Gimignano is a place that has it has a history, a rich history,
Mm.
and so those images of the calamari and the magic, really create this dreamlike atmosphere.
This next one is like a snapshot, it's so visual. He says, "Fragile, grayed lady, now tiptoe, now skirts high, sidewise, hasty retreat."
Yeah, it's like a single frame from a film. Who is that lady? Why is she running away? And yeah, it's a really, really great example of storytelling in just a few words.
Sound and setting are really well done in this one. Chalk chalk water tongue. Chalk chalk sound of foot to stone this marble island. That chalk chalk really gets you, doesn't it?
Yeah, that repetition, brings you right into that place. Makes you feel like you're there on that island, listening to those sounds, the marble, the stone, the water. It's all very, very evocative.
This next one, nature becomes a creative force. He says, "Veil of August's heat weaves the artist dragonfly. Banyan trees are flat." So the dragonfly is the artist in this one.
Yeah, it's a really creative image. It's like nature is making art, and then that image of the banyan trees being flat is really kind of surreal, almost like a shift in perspective.
Myth and mortality are intertwined in these lines. Fall, wax and feathers, flowers of burning petals, rah, rah, Icarus, and feathered pharmacos. Between surrogate and sun, Icarus depends.
So it's Icarus again, that classic myth. Right, and Icarus is so associated with this idea of ambition and the potential for downfall. The wax and feathers and the burning petals really capture the tragedy of it all. And then that phrase "feathered pharmacos." I mean, it suggests some kind of healing, but ultimately it's a doomed attempt.
He's talking to a sandpiper now. He says, "Oh, sandpiper, why do you dance at ocean's edge? Come, the water's fine."
Yeah, and it shows just this really direct connection with the natural world, and it's like he wants to understand the behavior of even the creatures.
Here's a good one. "Summer great black waves, one sees so seldom clearly." Oh,
Mm.
men pulling nets. So it's like this vast scene, and then you see this small detail of humanity.